All right, I am glad to be back live and let everybody see this. All right, so what we've got today is we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls that come about with dieting. All right, we are going to try to have let's see. Trying to get this set up for the recording. All right, for some reason it wants to show Phil instead of me.
That's not all bad, John. That's not all bad.
Yeah, so there we go. All right, now before we get into the pitfalls, I want to kind of go over some stuff about calories. And remember, calories are just the energy that's in food. Okay, so all this is how much energy is there. You could call it almost anything you want. That's just the term we use for it. Maintenance calories are the calories needed to maintain your body weight. Okay, that's why it's called maintenance. All right. So if you eat fewer than that, you're going to lose weight. If you eat more than that, you're going to gain weight. It's not really completely that simple, but for what we're talking about, that's really all we need to know. Okay. So if you're trying to just stay the same weight, you need to kind of figure out what calories kind of help you do that. All right. And then depending on your goals, you can adjust calories up or down and go from there. All right. Now, speaking of that, we need to understand something when it comes to food, and that it's the idea that there is always going to be a trade-off of some sort between flavor and being full. Okay. So tastier foods, the foods that we like to eat, are going to have a lot of calories in any given amount of food. All right. And then the foods that tend to be healthier for us maybe have more nutrients, but fewer calories, aren't going to be quite as good, but you're going to be able to eat more of them. Okay. So some of this is going to affect how you can do some of the dieting thing. All right. If you are somebody that you want to be full, you don't want to be hungry, then you're probably going to want to choose foods that are a little more nutrient dense and don't have as many calories in them. Okay. So, maybe that's the chicken breasts and the vegetables and things like that. And you can pretty much eat as much of that as you want. If you're someone that likes flavor, that's fine. We tend to demonize foods and call some foods good, some foods bad. And that's really not how it is. It's all kind of just this trade-off system of, okay, I like Oreos, but if I want to stay under my calories, I can't eat all of the Oreos. I need to have just a few of them versus, maybe it's some spinach and chicken breasts. I can eat a lot of that and it'll fill me up really well. Okay, so always kind of have that in mind and try not to demonize any foods and say that food's bad, because really all it is a collection of calories and nutrients. All right. And we also have to think about that looking at our ancestors. All right. Our ancestors struggled to get food. Food hasn't been around for all of human history like it is now, where I can literally never leave my house, order food, it'll be delivered to my front door in no time. Okay. And they used to have to go track this stuff down. So foods with a lot of calories tended to be tasty to us so that we would be more encouraged to eat them so we can store that body fat for survival. All right. Okay. So getting into our pitfalls. One of the major pitfalls people tend to have is they try to lose the weight too fast. Okay. So, and it's just part of our nature. We want to accomplish a goal and we want it to suffer as short amount of time as possible. However, there is a healthy rate to lose weight at. Okay. And that rate is about 1% a week. So for most people, it's going to be somewhere between 1 and 3 pounds a week. Okay. And so the smaller you are, the closer to 1 it's going to be. And the bigger you are, the closer to 3 it's going to be, somewhere in there. Okay. Which, if you think about it, that works out to about a 500 to 1,500 calorie per day deficit. Now that's not under your maintenance calories. That's under the calories you expend, which we'll go over a little bit more next week. Okay, so the idea here is the smaller you are, the smaller deficit you're going to want to stay in. The bigger you are, the bigger deficit you can kind of get away with. Now, the first few weeks of any kind of diet phase, you're probably going to lose the weight faster. Okay, but that's mostly going to be water loss, at least at first. So if you're losing 5+ pounds a week that first week or two, what's going to happen is your body's going to deplete itself of carbohydrates. And with those carbs, you lose, for every gram of carbs, you lose about 3 grams of water. So this is especially true if you're going to be on some sort of low carb diet, like Atkins or keto or something like that. When you run out of carbs, your body flushes water. Okay. And then you see that big loss in weight early on, and you're excited, but then that's going to slow down to that 1 to 3 pound a week rate. And sometimes people can get disappointed from that. And then they start pushing it harder and harder, and that becomes a problem. Okay. Instead, just know that tends to happen, that you lose a lot of weight up first, and then you're going to have to see it slow down. And then once it really slows down, you might need to make an adjustment and, cut a few more calories or burn a few more calories. All right. Another rule to kind of live by is the longer it takes to lose the weight, the easier it is to keep the weight off. Okay. Because you're going to do less damage to your metabolism, because you're not going to be as restrictive in that short time span, or over a longer period of time. You don't have to be as restrictive as if you try to cram it all in to a few weeks. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Now, what's probably going to be the number one mistake people tend to make when it comes to this is they over restrict. Okay. So people, again, we want to get it done fast. And so what they do is rather than finding their maintenance calories, most people have no idea what that even is. They just kind of say, I'm going to do this method. And then they just cut everything out, and then they lose a lot of weight quickly. And then it screeches to a halt. And then they've actually set themselves up for trouble because they've kind of jacked up their metabolism. All right. Instead, be patient. Get the most out of the least. Okay. So if you can get away with a 500 calorie deficit, and you're seeing the scale move, and you're seeing weight come off, and your belly shrinking, and all those good things, keep doing that as long as it works. Okay. Don't go too fast. And then if you, then don't speed it up unless you have to. Be patient with it. One thing I hear quite often is such and such diet has worked for me many times. Every time I do keto, it works great. Or every time I fast, I lose weight. But my thought on that is, if you're having to do this diet repeatedly over and over and over again, then that means that the weight's come back and you're having to restart the diet, which means the diet really didn't work. Yeah, you lost weight several times, but you gained it right back, which means I don't know how good of a diet that is for you. Choose something that you can do forever. All right. Now, once you get to your goal weight, then you can back off the restriction a little bit and kind of be at maintenance, and then you're good. All right. But don't keep your foot on the gas too hard, and then don't back way off when you get to your goal. Another problem, and this should kind of go without saying, but is under restriction. Okay. You have to restrict, or you're not going to lose weight. Now, one of the biggest reasons for this is calorie labels can be off by 20%. Most people literally have no idea what they eat, how much they eat, how many calories they get. And even when they start tracking, the labels can be off by as much as 20%. Okay. And at first that sounds bad. Like, why do they let them do that? But we got to understand, food's not completely 100% uniform throughout. So there's got to be some fluctuation. Like if you look at a chicken breast, chicken A may be 3% fat and chicken B may be 7% fat. Okay. And so you take those two chicken breasts, that's going to change the calories quite a bit. on a morbid kind of thought, if we were eating ground human and you took me, Phil, and Scott, you know, you mix those up, I'm going to be like the 95-5. Scott's going to be like the 90-10, and Phil's going to be like, what is it, ground chuck? You know, the 70-30 or something along those lines. I don't know. That's a weird thought that came to my head, but you know, that's just kind of, the foods aren't completely uniform. The other thing, this is a big problem, is people don't understand serving sizes. They very much underestimate them. And like, if you look at the picture of the peanut butter, that's a prime example. The middle picture is actually a serving, which is 190 calories. That's 2 tablespoons. The problem is people don't know that that's 2 tablespoons. They look at 1 tablespoon as if that's the bottom one, which is actually 3 tablespoons. And then guess what they do? They get 2 of those, which instead of getting 2 total tablespoons, they're getting 6. So they're 3 times the calories that they should have. And it doesn't take much for this to add up, because remember, only 10 extra calories a day over a year is about a pound of fat. Okay, so we got to be really careful there. Another problem, people fail to prepare. Okay, you need to have some sort of preparation that works for you. If you leave it to chance, you are going to fail. It's that simple. One of the main things that causes people to be successful is meal prepping. Okay, it removes all obstacles. It removes all the thinking. You have once or twice a week where you do all the cooking, and you're good. Okay. You know, another thing is to have a plan for when there are obstacles. I traveled this last weekend, and so I was not able to have the foods that I really wanted, but instead I made some alterations. I fasted a little bit more. That worked. And in the end, what would have been a disaster before, other times that I did this, actually ended up, I lost a little bit of weight from doing that. So, you know, you just have to have a plan. Shopping, make sure you have a plan going in when you shop. Don't go in and wing it, or you're going to buy foods you don't want. And then when you eat out, have an idea what you want, know the menu beforehand, and stick to it. Okay. I can't tell you the number of times I've known what I wanted to eat. I get there, and at the last minute, instead of ordering sirloin steak and a potato, I end up going for chicken fettuccine. Well, I just lost a bunch of protein and gained a bunch of calories. Okay. So know what you're going to get and stick to that plan. The other thing people do is they fall for quick fixes and fads. None of those work, period. Okay. So fads work by over restriction. So they do work short term. A lot of times they work great, but they lead to long-term problems. You know, you look at that picture, that's an actual ad I saw. They lost 44 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm going to tell you right now, if you lose 44 pounds in 2 weeks, it is not fat that you're losing. First of all, you'll probably be dead. But second of all, if you do that, it's going to be water. It's going to be muscle. It's not going to mostly be fat. And you're definitely not going to do that from just one gummy every day. Okay. These are lies. They look good and they attract us, but do not fall for it. The other thought there is, how long did it take to become overweight? You know, probably years and years and years. So why would you think that in weeks you can take that off? Instead, enjoy the process, learn what you can learn from it, let it make you a better person in other ways as well, with the discipline and all those types of things that come with it. And then just let it go and take the time. And then before you know it, you'll be where you want to be. This is my biggest problem, is caloric beverages. Soda. It has 140 to 160 calories per can, and most people who drink full octane soda aren't drinking 1 can. A lot of people can add easily 800 to 1,000 calories a day and no nutritional value. Okay. Another issue here is high calorie coffees. People don't think of this as something that's adding calories, but you get those big fancy drinks at Starbucks or whatever, you're looking at 400, 500, 600 calories that you're not even taking into account. Okay. And then the other thing is serving sizes have increased greatly, really on everything. Now, maybe the inflation that's happened and the shrinkflation that comes with that will help with this problem, I guess, if that can be one good thing about it. But we went from, you know, a drink at McDonald's being that big to being this big, and we added again another 500 calories just from that. Alcohol. This is another major problem a lot of people have. Okay, and here's why. Protein and carbs have 4 calories per gram. Okay, fat has 9. That's what our bodies are designed to be looking for when it comes to our metabolisms. We are good at handling those amounts of calories. Alcohol has 7 calories per gram. Our body, while it can metabolize it, views it as a toxin, because that 7 is like, wait, this is a weird thing. I'm not used to it. So what it does, it takes it and it wants to prioritize metabolizing it. Well, here's where that's a problem. Any food that you eat while you're drinking, your body is going to say, I'm going to put this aside and store it immediately as fat, and so I can deal with this alcohol. Well, you've now taken that food and instead of using it, you stored it as fat, okay, plus the calories and alcohol. So it's kind of a double whammy problem. If you're going to drink, if that's part of your lifestyle or whatever, just be very aware of this. And I would limit the amount of food you eat while you're drinking, and I would limit how often you drink, okay, because that tends to be where the problem comes. Another problem is too much focus on the scale, okay? Weight loss does not necessarily equal fat loss. Okay, we've talked some about water loss, but also when you start lifting, which is part of this program, you're going to start adding some muscle. Okay, as you add that muscle, you may not necessarily lose as much scale weight, even though you're losing more fat. So don't let that freak you out. That's a good thing. Okay, you'll actually look better from it. Now, the other thing to remember is weight loss is not linear. Okay, it's not going to just drop in a straight line. It's going to go down, and then it's going to plateau, and it's going to down, and it may go up. But what you're looking for is the general trend. Okay, so there may be days where you're up a pound, and then you're back down 3, and then up 4. Like, as long as the general trend is down, you're good. So expect some plateaus as you do this, and don't let that freak you out. Now, we're all going to struggle in some different way. Okay. Mine, like I said, tends to be, calories in liquid form and things like that. So find out what yours are and then have a plan to deal with it. Then stick with that plan. Okay. Now, if you have struggles and you want a little advice on that, email me. You can see that email right there, or you can email the Inner Circle Leader team, and we can kind of come up with some strategies to help you out. Okay, now, real quick, I want to go over, remind you of our tactics that we use. Okay, so remember, weight loss is simple, but simple isn't easy. So we're going to keep it very, very simple and not overcomplicate it. We want to do the least that we can do to get results, and we always want to have a card to play. Okay, so we don't want to take every card and just throw it on the table from the beginning. Cut some calories somehow with our restrictions, add a little bit of exercise, and ride that as long as you can while you lose weight. When that slows down, cut some more calories, add a little more exercise. We don't want to cut all of the calories and do all of the work up front, because you have nowhere to go after that. All right, so our 3 levers. What you eat, or when you eat, okay? Eat less often. So skip meals, don't have snacks, have an eating window. This is one of our levers. This is probably my favorite one. Okay. Lever 2, how much you eat. Eat less when you eat. All right. This is one of the most simple ways to do it. Just don't eat as much. So use the hand method for portion size. Meal prep, get smaller plates, or cut some of the servings down. Pretty simple, but you can eat like as often as you regularly eat, and you can eat the foods that you normally eat. And then the last one is what you eat. Okay. Eat like an adult, protein, fruits, veggies, whole foods. That's the big one. Not ultra processed foods. Shop on the outside aisles, all that good stuff. So hit your protein target. 1 gram per pound of your goal weight, or 4 to 6 palms per day of some sort of meat, some sort of fish, chicken, eggs, dairy, all those good things. Protein shakes are just as good as well. So what we want to do, we want to hit our protein goal. We want to use the method of restriction that keeps you in a deficit that you can do every day. And then who cares about the carbs or fats unless you have a preference, because that really doesn't matter if you're in a deficit. All right, so our tasks for this week, 5 days this week, I want you to pull one of the levers, the one you like the most. 2 days this week, I want you to pull 2 levers. Okay, so if you normally restrict your time, maybe you don't only eat from noon to 6 p.m. or noon to 8 p.m., somewhere in there, then also cut your portions 2 of those days, or eat cleaner foods those 2 days. All right, so now we're starting to crank it up a bit and go a little harder. Get your protein in, 1 gram per pound of your ideal weight. Keep the strength training going, and then continue the walking from last week. So lots of tasks this week, but we're getting to the point where things need to crank a little bit harder. And with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Good information there. I encourage you guys, when we're changing gears here, if you will, to not, I want you to keep in mind, we're going to be dealing with the spiritual, but I want you to also keep in mind the physical and the mental, because the uniqueness of our program is the fact that the spiritual affects every part of our life. And so tonight, what I want to look at is the scripture is out of Galatians 6, 7, and 9. It says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will reap from that flesh reap corruption, and the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." One of the most important things is to not give up sowing the kind of seed of what you want to harvest. This is true physically. It's true in the mental tasks of what Phil's talking about not having a closed or a fixed mindset, but to have a growth mindset. It works in the spiritual too. That's why it's important to do these tasks physically, mentally, and spiritually. This picture here shows a whole lot. Our current culture tells us that we can have sacrifice or effort, that, kind of like the gummy thing that John says, all you got to do is eat one of these gummies and you'll lose 44 pounds and everything will be great. And you can just take that thought and take it all the way across the board in every part of life. And, you deserve success because you exist. And this picture here is, to me, very, very important, because what people see is success in any part of life. For example, in the spiritual, you see a godly man or woman, you really admire their walk, you admire the kind of person they are. But what you don't see is what's below the waterline there. You don't see the persistence, you don't see the hard work, you don't see the failures and the sacrifice and the time they spend in the Word and different things like that. So keep these things in mind. And anytime you see success, if someone has sowed something underneath the ground, like this iceberg, that has made that success be evident. Motivation. This is another great thing. I have this particular sign in my office. It really, to me, if you take the sowing and reaping, you can apply it to this. When you sow thoughts, for example, a lot of people will be on here, because maybe they want to get in shape or something. You'll hear people say, "Well, I'm fat." Fat is not who you are. You need to get rid of that thought, and you need to get rid of that statement, because that is not who you are. And so if you sow thoughts, you're going to harvest words. You're going to start to speak things about it. If you sow actions, you're going to harvest habits. If you sow habits, you're going to harvest character. And if you sow character, it's going to be your destiny. So keep in mind these things, that these things you sow, there's a progression to them, and that works in the positive, that works in the negative. Okay, it's actually very simple. You sow corn, you get corn. Everybody knows that. But, in the natural, people tend to forget that in other areas. In the natural, they know if they want watermelons, they don't go out and buy corn seeds. They buy watermelon seeds. They buy a watermelon plant. Well, this works physically, spiritually, and physically. So one thing about sowing is this: it's hard work, but B, it also, in sowing in the natural, a farmer has to watch out for pests. one of the biggest pests in your spiritual life and in your physical life and your mental life is going to be the pest of complacency. You become very complacent where you're at. You don't try, you quit, and you move back, and that's a pest, and that will destroy your harvest. 7 laws of the harvest. And it's very simple. We reap only what has been sown. We reap the same kind as we sow. We reap in a different season than we sow. And I really want you guys to focus on this. I know it's simple. You may not think you know it, but I think the more you look into this, it has some great value for you. We reap more than we sow. We reap in proportion to what we sow. And we reap the full harvest of good only if we persevere. Evil comes to harvest on its own. And we can't do anything about last year's harvest, but we can this year's. When we fail in any part of our life, spiritually, physically, or mentally, I'm telling you right now, don't focus on it. Get back on the horse. Get back. If you miss days of reading your scriptures, if you miss days of doing stuff, the worst things people do is they focus on what they've done wrong, and then they become disappointed in themselves, and then it's just a constant barrage of poor thinking, poor speaking, and then the harvest is not good. So I encourage you. You can't do anything about last week or yesterday, but you can do something about tomorrow. Sowing takes effort. I love this thing. It's from a Rocky movie. I know my wife will find this funny because I always watch them still every time they come on. But I love this thing because it's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That is true in every part of life. And that's very true spiritually. You can be heading down a road. You can be trying your best to be not being forgiving of people that hurt you and stuff like that. And then something comes along and that person hurts you again and they hit you. And you have to keep moving forward. You have to keep doing, don't be weary in doing good, but keep moving forward. Don't quit. Don't give up. Our spiritual task for the week. You got one, you look at this, you can take a picture with your phone, you can log on when John, or you can look at it when John sends it. But each one of these here will encourage you this week about sowing and about reaping. They're things to keep in your mind, and they will encourage you as you go throughout the week. And with that, Phil, it is going to be turned over to you, my friend.
Are we good? You see, our identity drives choices. Okay. Our identity drives choices. A little recap. A couple of weeks ago, we said, we have to have identity first. The choice is this. Okay. Are we going to have pain? I hate to, in fact, I erased the word, because we're going to endure pain. I would call it probably discomfort. We're either going to have pain to discipline or pain to consequences. That's all there is. That's all there is out there. I'm going to discipline my financial situation, or I'm going to live stressed out because I can't pay my bills. I'm going to discipline, as John has laid before us. I'm going to pull my levers on my nutrition, or I'm going to be very frustrated with the consequences of being undisciplined in my pursuit of health. Okay, that's the only two disciplines we have. And our identity, okay, if we've established a strong identity, who are you going to be in 5 years? Who are you going to be in 10 years? It drives our decision. The only other one is we're going to default, as it's been discussed earlier today, we're going to default to comfort. Okay. And because given in the moment, if we don't have a plan, I believe John talked about, planning. Okay. In the moment, we're going to do whatever makes us feel good. Okay. Delayed gratification. I want to talk about this today. It's a cool study. Came out in 1972. So most of us weren't born. Susan, I think, was graduating college. Okay. So that was good. But delayed gratification. So they took a bunch of preschool kids. They set a marshmallow down. You have to know it's 1972 because marshmallow wouldn't be a big deal to a child right now. And they said, hey, Bobby, you sit here. I'm going to leave the room for just a few minutes. If I come back and that marshmallow is still there, you're going to get another marshmallow. If I leave the room and you eat the marshmallow, then you've had your treat for the day. Only like 4 to 6% could think in the capacity that they wanted to be disciplined for 15 minutes. Okay. So they could have 2 marshmallows. And we can laugh at these little kids, but a lot of us live our lives like this. Okay. When it comes to finances, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to our fitness, when it comes to our spiritual growth, as Scott has said. Okay. Do we wake up intentionally and create behaviors that are going to give us, metaphorically speaking, the 2 marshmallows? Is that our thought process? And what was really crazy, I know you think, well, the marshmallows ended there, but they didn't. They followed these kids for 40 years. The kids that understood delayed gratification had better high paying jobs, more education, less stress, less depression, healthier relationships. That concept that I'm going to have purpose in my actions to give a greater, as Scott has said, a greater harvest has been around forever. And so many of us, the norm is to not exercise our discipline because it's painful and to give us our instantaneous gratification. So delayed gratification is a big deal. Emotions have a lot to do with it. I hope you can see this. I spent some time making this identity. Okay. Here's what growth mindset people do. Who are you going to be in 5 years? What's your identity physically, education wise, appearance wise? What's your identity? That should be building intentional habits as you wake up tomorrow. Tomorrow, you should have a list of things that you're going to accomplish because you love you and because it makes you. And I'll be honest with you. If you don't do those actions, nobody's going to know but you because it doesn't make that dramatic of difference. If I don't eat my described protein and I don't limit my carbohydrates, my body's not going to change tomorrow, but it'll look a lot different in 3 months. Okay. Intentional action that creates growth. Growth creates a process, a product, and that's where our gratification happens. That's the emotion we're going after. When we buy a pant size smaller, when we go and we look at our savings account, okay, that is what we're going for. That delayed emotion. Here's what the norm and what average norm. I went a little long Sunday, so I took it out of it. I'm going to share with you in the next time or two the average norm. The concepts I'm talking about are not normal. They're very radically different. The average person, an event happens, let's say a shopping spree, let's say a birthday party, let's say whatever. It triggers an emotion and they 100% act on that emotion. Your emotion is not going to lead you to a very positive response. Okay. I think back at my early days of marriage, not being in control of my emotion, my early days of coaching, my early days, letting my emotions drive my actions and responses created a lot of regret for me. Okay. And then because we've responded to our emotion, we, not people around us, but we as an individual have expressed ourselves. Then it comes to, I guess we get a short-term comfort, but long-term we get failure and that's negative. So that's not the growth mindset person. Okay. Amber Selking, Susan's reading her book. I love it. Winning the mental game. If you want something different than what you have, then you need to change what you are doing. I mean, it doesn't get any more basic than that. Scott said it today. Okay. If you've got a dadgum, field full of thistles, start planting some dadgum corn. John said it. If all your diet is about, what I want and what tastes good, and I have no limits to it, then my consequences aren't very good. I have to change my plan of attack. That goes to debrief. This adds to my task today. Okay. At the end of the night, my task is gratitude journal and reading 15 minutes. It's going to continue, but I'm going to add a debrief 5 minutes before you go to bed. There's 3 questions. Were you honest with yourself? Did you do what you set out to do? If you didn't, whatever you did, I walked, I lifted, I ate my prepared meals. Rate yourself on how emotionally you felt at the end of the day for doing those. if you failed, and we're going to fail, it's a process. I didn't get my walk in. Then be honest with yourself in a 1 to 10 emotion. How does that make you feel today? And hopefully that will motivate you to do it. And then come up with a very brief game plan. I shared last week, I walked for 4 years. I've been walking for 4 years, walk today. My coach had us start coming in with our football team at 5:30 a.m. 2 days a week. I told myself, and I was being very honest with myself, that that was too early to get up. I could not walk and get to weights, so I would walk after. I failed for 2 months. I've been walking every day for 2 years. I failed for 2 months. And my adjustment was this. I had to be honest with myself. And my debriefing was on those 2 days a week, instead of waking up at 4:30, I had to wake up at 4. I had to get out of the comfort. And I got news for you. If that helps you out, 4 o'clock is terrible to get out of bed. So is 4:30. So there was really no difference other than I was getting my tasks done. So 3 entries in your gratitude journal. You're blessed. You're gifted. Read a podcast or mental group. Okay. 15 minutes and evaluate the day right before you go to bed. I think written notes always help. John, I'll send it back to you.
All right. That's it. We'll be back Sunday morning and we'll be back next week at this time. If you do not have the task sheet, let us know. I should have sent it to everybody today. And other than that, I hope you guys have a great week.
Have a good one.
They may have fallen asleep.
Alicia was on.
Okay, hang on.